Hi guys, it's Trevor Tolliver here, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, I am privileged to introduce our guest on the show today. He is the current goalkeeper for Chelsea and England's national team. Here is Kieran Lambourne. Kieran, welcome to the show, and how are you?
Hi, Keith. I'm very good. Thank you, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. Delighted to have you on the show. We had your teammate Mark Smith on the show recently. We was discussing about the Chelsea Amputee team, and he gave me a glowing reference to you, which is not bad to have as for somebody with Mark's backstory. But in regards to yourself, Kieran, want to sort of start the interview and sort of start talking about your journey, and how did your journey to become a footballer for an amputee team start?
Yes, I mean, compared to a lot of kind of the stories of the other Chelsea players and England players, mine's a simple or a boring one, really. So I was born with my amputation, so I didn't have a left arm below the elbow. So for me, I've always just had it, so I've been able to kind of adapt all my life. So it's not been such a challenge as what other people have had. But no, since a young child, I've been really interested in sport and footy. Played it ever since I could walk, really. So I was kicking the ball before I was walking, to be honest. But no, like I say, I just played from a sort of grassroots team all the way through till about 12 or 13. At that point, I was with sort of Norwich Disability Foundation in their PDC, and so I hadn't even heard of amputee football until probably 2 years into that. When I was about 13, they said I either wanted to play for England, then I'd have to play in goal. At that point, I didn't like the sound of that. I'd never played in goal, avoided it like the plague. But yes, first session back from that, I had a go. Didn't go too great, to be honest. The first shot that came at me, I tried to head it away. So I certainly wasn't a natural. And then, yeah, from there, sort of got in contact with my local disability officer. And he had a very close contact with the England goalkeeper at the time, Gary Heineke. And so, yeah, they basically questioned why couldn't I just play in the leagues? And at that point, I didn't know there was a league. So my local club at that time was Oxford, even though I'm from sort of Norfolk area. So it was certainly a stretch. So no,
That's a lot of travelling to do.
That is a hell of a lot of travelling. Yeah, it's probably about 3.5 hours. So yeah, literally played a couple games sort of just outfield to get used to the sport of amputee football, just because it's completely different to grassroots football that I'd played before, just with the crutches and everything that go with it. And then eventually a Peterborough team set up, which was a lot more local, so that made a lot more sense. And then so I had a couple of years at Peterborough, started playing in goal, but even though the Peterborough number one at that time was the England number one, so he was really good at sort of sharing minutes in goal, but it was always going to be a challenge, obviously when he wants to showcase what he can do to get in the England team. But no, sort of at 18, I moved to Portsmouth Uni, and they actually had a team. So I trained with them for one season at the first year at uni, eventually got in the team, so I could get some sort of first team football. And that was massive, really, in terms of sort of getting selected for England. So like the next year, I got selected for the 2018 World Cup in Mexico when I was 19. So that was sort of a massive experience. Not just the tournament, but the build up to it. We went to loads of different places, like with Dublin, Warsaw, Houston twice as well. So that was massive. Got loads of experience there, and obviously went to the World Cup. And yeah, obviously have been playing with Peterborough in the league up until obviously last year, where the Chelsea team was formed, and we've had a really good start.
We'll talk about how the Chelsea team began sort of later on, but in terms of yourself, you mentioned earlier that the goalkeeping position wasn't going to be your forte. Well, who was your idols growing up as a kid, and what position did you feel that you wanted to play?
So my first ever idol was Michael Owen. So that's why I'm a Liverpool fan, which you won't be pleased to hear. Yeah, he was just the first one that I wanted to be like. Got the same boots as him. Went on the field next door to try and recreate what he did all the time when I was 3 and 4. So I always saw myself as a striker, really. And as my sort of youth football progressed, I realised sort of fell further and further back the pitch. So I went from striker to midfield to defence, less running, and then obviously ended up in goal. So I was never destined to be a goalkeeper, but yeah, eventually I changed my mind.
What was it about the position that eventually, when you had them training sessions, that you felt, yeah, this could be my best position for in goal? What was that moment? What was that sort of light bulb that clicked moment for you?
I think having gone from sort of a centre back quite late on in my youth career, that sort of I like being able to see the whole pitch, and obviously having that we mixed in with sort of the potential ability to play for England. For me, it's kind of a no-brainer, a massive sort of ambition to go and do it. So it's sort of like a no-brainer for me. But no, I sort of transitioned into it kind of nicely. Obviously, having played defence, being able to see the whole pitch, it kind of transitioned quite nicely. But there was a lot of things like positioning that was just completely new to me. And at the start, I just didn't have a clue. I'm not going to lie, my position was horrendous. But no, it was just that kind of goal of playing for England was kind of what made me stick with it, really.
And was it because of that sort of goal and ambition you had of playing for England that you decided to then go to Portsmouth and train with them for the year? When you look back on your time now with that, do you feel that was a significant moment for you because you was able to train with a new group of players, so you get sort of an understanding of where they are, but also an understanding of where you are compared to your peers?
Yeah, massive. That probably the biggest year in terms of my amputee football career, really, to be fair. Just from being able to train every week, which was huge, which we didn't get at Peterborough. Obviously to practice training and goal, which at the time, was a new position that I was learning. So to be able to get that experience and then obviously play regularly in the team, that was massive, really, in terms of being able to be scouted for England. Sort of the England manager, Owen Coyle, at the time, sort of everyone sort of knew I needed to get some experience playing in goal. They saw I had some sort of potential, having seen me play outfield. But to kind of play in goal regularly in the league was exactly what I needed. And yeah, everybody at Portsmouth was so welcoming. Like the first season, I was still playing for Peterborough, but they still let me train with the team. So that was massive. And then, obviously settled me into the team, managed to get so many minutes, which was huge, really, in terms of my development, playing in the league regularly. So yeah, absolutely massive sort of part of the journey, really, that kind of brought me into kind of the England setup. So yeah, massive.
And with all this that you was looking to do and your ambition to become a footballer, how significant was the support that you was getting back home with your family and your friends because of this is what you wanted to do and you was able to conquer that, you was able to achieve those aspirations? What kind of support was you able to get through that?
Massive, really. So everybody sort of at home, my family, especially my parents, sort of were really, really helpful in that kind of. Obviously, not being able to drive before sort of I was at uni was a challenge. Obviously, like I say, when I'm travelling to Oxford or Manchester for these earlier fixtures, so that was massive to have sort of their support on my side, and obviously supporting me at uni, sort of living away on your own for the first time it's a big change. So they helped with that massively. Sort of if I needed anything, then I could just ask for it. And yeah, sort of the support I got, sort of just encouragement, even if it was just like, I'll keep going. Sort of when when you're starting out a new position at a new club and everything like that, it's always kind of difficult to start off with. But yeah, that's been massive as well, sort of along the way to getting where I am today, really.
Now, you went to Peterborough shortly after that. Was you a little bit trepidatious about how this was going to go, or was you thinking, this is a good step for me to then progress my career further?
Yeah, there's always that little bit of sort of doubt in your mind, sort of when you're changing sort of clubs. But I think from my perspective and from everyone's sort of perspective, it made a lot of sense. Obviously, if I was going to uni and then playing for Portsmouth, that made sense. And obviously coming back, sort of the last year of uni that I had, I was actually on placement with the Peterborough United first team, like their actual team. So I kind of had a link to the club that way. So obviously moving back, that made a lot of sense as well, because they ended up starting some sessions that were in Peterborough, and I moved back home by that point, sort of like 2020, 2021. So yeah, it kind of made sense on a lot of levels. So I don't think there was any sort of controversy about it or anything like that. And obviously, when I'd moved back as well, sort of the likes of Mark and a lot of the lads that are in Chelsea's team right now were, I saw it as a really sort of good team spirit. Everyone was really close knit and everything like that. So that was a real sort of that really attracted me really, just to come back and everything sort of aligned really, obviously with me working with the club and knowing a few people behind the scenes. It all kind of made sense and come together nicely really.
And you was playing regularly for the Peterborough team. You was also winning more matches than losing. You ended up being quite successful with that Peterborough side. I know I spoke to Mark last week about it. You was winning championships, you was winning the Disability Cup. Sort of cast your mind back to that point where you was winning championships, and you had that sort of great moment where you was able to win the Disability FA Cup. Did you think that at that point it can only go downhill from here, or was you thinking, no, I can this is the level I need to now progress to the point where I'm winning more championships, more cups? What was your sort of emotions going through your mind on that bit?
Yeah, I think there's always that sort of that doubt in your mind of thinking sort of having won all these things, winning that FA Disability Cup, which was on TV, and a few weeks later there's a TikTok video that ends up getting like 30 million views that you're on, and you think it can't really get any better than this really. Should I just kind of stop here? But no, they're obviously being so quite early in my career and everything, there was this motivation to carry on and continue. And I think obviously not quite getting that exposure sort of from the club itself gave us that bit of fire in our bellies to carry on and keep doing something special, so that we could get the recognition that we felt we deserved. And then, obviously with the England kind of career and everything like that as well, there was that motivation there to, want to cement my place in the team, get the number one spot, and win some international trophies. And obviously domestically, now with Chelsea as well. So there is that doubt, sort of thinking, should I just stop here and quit while we're winning, sort of thing. But no, I think it just made sense to carry on and fight for more, really.
Well, I was going to mention about your England career as well. It's been a fascinating story as well. You've been involved in the World Cup. You've been involved in the European Championships, I believe, as well. And you said sort of before we started the interview, you visited many countries, and you've had that experience of working with your teammates and playing against different sides. Cast your mind back to the time where you got theoretically your first cap for England. What was going through your mind on that particular occasion?
Well, aside from a lot of nerves, a lot of pride really. So I'd gained my first cap within the first tournament. We were in Ireland. We played at the Bohemian Stadium, and I'd kind of got in my mind that I wasn't going to play that weekend, to be honest, because we had a game against Ireland on the Friday, and that was kind of seen as sort of the easier game, if you like. And I didn't get a chance to play in that because that was a really tight game. And then on the Saturday we played Poland, and they're a big team, sort of top three in Europe sort of thing. So by that point, sort of entering that game, I thought I'm probably not going to get on here, quite a high profile game and everything like that. But no, sort of played the last few minutes of that, and yeah, obviously a surreal feeling, kind of dreaming of being an England player when you're a kid. To go and do that was special, really. And yeah, it's absolutely buzzing. A lot of relief once the game had finished as well, I think. I barely touched the ball, but it was just kind of getting through the game, just thinking, wow, I've got my first cap. So yeah, it was special.
And then when you got to this stage where you are a Peterborough regular, you're an England regular for your team, was there any sort of point where you felt I can look at how you started to learn from other goalkeepers, and you started to learn about their positioning and how they, for example, would command their area or instruct the defence in front of them? Was there any goalkeepers in particular that you sort of decided to learn from and look at more closely?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, sort of when I first started as a goalkeeper, I mean, I just looking at kind of amputee football itself. Obviously, Gary Maheineke, who was kind of the number one before I stepped in, really sort of, gave me a lot of tips and things like that. Obviously, with him being sort of from the same area that I was from, having a similar story as well, I gained a lot from him, just watching and training with him. So that was massive. And then obviously you get other amputee footballers and goalkeepers from around the world that you kind of look and you think, that they're good. Sort of you pick a few bits from them. But I think in kind of the mainstream game, I didn't really pick a particular goalkeeper really to kind of base my game around. Obviously, like I say, I was always been an outfielder, so there wasn't really sort of like a role model as such that I wanted to copy. But I'd say sort of more recently in the last few years, I say the likes of kind of De Gea and Alisson, who are not just good stoppers, shot stoppers, but like really good with their feet, like distribution wise. I think kind of I've got more of an appreciation for that side of things, having been an outfielder before. So yeah, I've kind of taken a lot from sort of their games and things like that. So yeah, they've been sort of more recently the kind of goalkeepers that I've kind of watched and learned from, really.
And would you say that's probably helped you as well as the goalkeeper? Because, well, as you say, you was an outfield player once. You was able to concentrate, whether you was left-footed, right-footed, or even both, and that would have helped you when it came to, for example, trying to keep possession. They would pass you the ball back, and you was able not to just be old school and lump it forward, but you was able to at least pass with your feet. Would you say that was quite pivotal for you, knowing that you had that sort of experience of playing with both feet, being able to pass and receive the ball?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously having, like I say, being an outfielder, you've kind of got that sort of ability already. It's sort of not something that you have to learn. Whereas if you're kind of starting out as a goalkeeper, you might not have that sort of brushed up yet. So that helped massively. But I think sort of just in terms of amputee football of the game, I think, being a goalkeeper, obviously the only one with two legs, you need to be able to play that ball really well and get the detail on the pass right. So it's a kind of a big thing within the sport, really. And I think also just so when I kind of started with England as well, kind of the kind of game they played, it was always start out from a goalkeeper, and so being able to have that good range of passing was pivotal, really, in terms of being able to get into that England team and progressing from there. So yeah, I'd definitely say it's a massive part of kind of the goalkeeping game in amputee football, definitely.
And speaking of progression, you was able to get a move to Chelsea last August to be exact. How did that move come about for you?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the kind of the Peterborough era, if you like, sort of came to an end, really, sort of when we realised we weren't getting that exposure, and so there was kind of a core group from Peterborough that were keen to move to a different club, and so as soon as I kind of heard word about Chelsea setting up an amputee football team, it was a no-brainer, to be honest. Just to have the things that they said they were offering, obviously being able to train at Cobham, and obviously wearing the kit, being part of the foundation as well, it was massive, really. So to be able to be a part of that was a massive draw. And yeah, obviously, like now we're getting that exposure. The club have been really good so far, and obviously the fans have really bought into it as well. Our amputee football pages on Facebook and things like that have grown massively.
Yes.
So it's really good to see sort of the supporters gaining an interest and insight into it, which is probably one of the biggest things to come out of it, to be honest. I think just spreading awareness of the game. A lot of people probably haven't even heard of the sport. And then obviously a lot of people probably don't even know that Chelsea have an amputee football team. So I think just getting the exposure out there, getting the word out, and as I say, the fans have been brilliant so far, sort of just wanting to know more about the sport, and even the foundation as well. The coaches are buzzing to get to know the game and learn it and things like that. They're learning so much, obviously having not seen too much of the game. Obviously just after we started there was the World Cup, so they're pretty much watching every minute of that, sort of learning as much as they could, and they've been really enthusiastic about wanting to play a certain way, and putting their kind of spin on the sport, really, sort of what they see from it. So it's been really good so far, yeah.
And what was it like getting it to Cobham for the first time, knowing that you was not just here as a tourist, but you was here training for Chelsea Football Club? You was representing Chelsea.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Just that feeling of driving through, sort of knowing you're a Chelsea player. It's kind of like surreal. Obviously, when you're a kid, you might be waiting outside the training grounds, waiting for someone to stop and give you an autograph. So to be able to kind of to drive in through the Cobham gates was unbelievable, really. And it's still I don't think any of us really have it's sunk in with any of us yet. I think we still think this is mental, really, that we're training, we're the first team playing, and we get this opportunity. So yeah, it's massive, really.
Fantastic. And you had a couple of games as well, sort of recently. You played Everton, you played Arsenal as well. For you, although the results did not go our way, how did you think sort of yourself and your teammates fared as well?
Yeah, I think we gave a decent impression of ourselves. I think obviously when you're a new team, sort of everyone kind of looks down and you think, they're not going to be much. They're not going to trouble us too much. And obviously a lot of the other teams have, the big England players and things like that. So it's always going to be a challenge. But I thought we put on a good display, really. Obviously disappointing to not get any wins in the end. But there's definitely a good starting point for us. As you say, with new players gelling in, it's always going to be a challenge. And yeah, obviously it's disappointing not to have results show for it. Obviously, we've been training since August at Cobham. But no, it's certainly a good starting point that we know we can improve from. We know definitely we can get better results, and that'll only improve as the season goes on, really. The more training we get, and the more we get familiar with playing with each other. So yeah, disappointing not to win. I think from a personal point of view, I had an okay game, really. I played against Everton in that first match. And yeah, the first goal we conceded was disappointing, probably on my fault, really. It was a near post shot, caught me off guard. I thought he was crossing it. But no, the rest of the game was pretty decent. And yeah, a good starting point, I think, really, yeah.
And if there's anybody in particular that is interested in coming down to watch you guys play, what advice would you give to them, or what information can you sort of send over that if people were interested, how would they sort of get to find out about the upcoming matches and find out how you guys are doing in progress?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, well, to start off with, we've got a Facebook page, Chelsea FC Amputees. So there's normally quite a few posts on there, sort of either about our next fixtures or pictures or things like that. So that's a good starting point. But we also train at Cobham on a Saturday 2 till 4 every other week. So anyone's really able to come and watch if they're interested, just to get an insight to the game. Really, it's quite fascinating to see for the first time. And then we have league fixtures once a month up at Reese's College, which is in Nantwich or Crewe, Cheshire way. So that's every month, which was obviously a trek for anyone to go and watch. So if you do go and watch them, fair play. But it's normally very cold up there, a long journey. But we'll have league fixtures once a month. And next month we've got the League Cup. That's going to be huge. Obviously, if you do win that, you get a chance to go into the FA Disability Cup final, which is at St George's Park. So there's a massive incentive to go and win that. So we're going to be doing all we can to improve. Hopefully, get a favourable draw in the semis. We'll have a semi-final and a final. And hopefully bag our first trophy for Chelsea will be really good. That's what we're going for.
That'll be superb. But you'll probably have more chance to win a trophy before Graham Potter and his band of Merry Misfits does. Anyway, before I promised myself I would not rant about current day Chelsea, but I do want to get your thoughts. I know you said you was a diehard Liverpool fan, but as you represent Chelsea, you see some of the players. I know that Mark mentioned to me that he bumped into Pierre Aubameyang while he was at the car park, which is kind of a cool story. But what's your thoughts on the current day shambles at Chelsea Football Club at the moment? Are you surprised with how things have gone? Do you feel that Graham deserves a bit longer in the hot seat? What's your overall take on the shit show that is Chelsea Football Club at the moment?
I mean, there's been huge change, isn't there, really, in the last 12 months, really.
12, yeah.
Obviously, with Abramovich going, Bowley coming in, there's always going to be a sort of a transition period. But I don't think anybody really saw it being this sort of a big change, really, obviously, with the crazy amount of signings there's been. I didn't see that either. And I think, there's obviously, there needs to be some sort of that sort of period to transition, obviously, such a big change. But obviously, as fans, you want to see sort of results being shown straight away or soon, or at least having sort of some hope or optimism of that.
At least
sign
score
of
a
it.
goal. That'd be nice.
That would be lovely, I think. But no, I think personally, I don't follow them, but I think Potter does deserve a bit of time to stick with the players and try and form a way. Obviously, he's got a load of different players to work with and things like that. And so I personally think, give him till the end of the season, see what he can do, and then sort of start fresh in pre-season, really, with that bunch of players. But I understand the sort of the lack of patience, if you want, because obviously you're not getting those results straight away. It must be really frustrating. I mean, I can't really comment too much. We've not been any better really this season, so we're trying to hold on for a top 4 spot, really, but it's kind of looking more hopeful than anything. So,
well, your team's going to stay in the Premier League. We're going to end up in the Championship the way things are going. So we'll.
I don't think it's that bad. Surely not that bad. But no, I think.
Well, we're only 10 points from the bottom 3, so that gives you a bit of an indication. But a couple more questions. I promised I wouldn't rant. A couple more questions before we finish, Kieran. In terms of yourself and with the Chelsea side, what would you say is like a short-term goal that you'd have for your team, and what would you say would be a long-term goal for you and your current team?
Yeah, I think a short-term goal, probably, winning some sort of silverware within the next couple of years. I think that's probably realistic. I think obviously when you're in your first season, everybody's kind of still got to get used to playing with each other. You're wanting to attract more players, and there's always that kind of development going on. So that would be brilliant if we could have something to show for it after 2 years. And then long term, I think, probably the most exciting thing that I think for me and just Chelsea in general is sort of the potential that the Amputee team have. They've set up a junior team, so that they're the only club in the country to do that. So that's been massive because especially coming from the south, and coming through the pathway myself, obviously to go and play for England. If you want to go and play or represent England or get some training for England, then you're gonna have to go up to all the way up to Crewe to showcase what you can do and to train. So I think what they've done has been massive in terms of inviting juniors to play and train down at Cobham, which is, well, it's an experience in itself, but just kind of being able to train, and obviously they're getting the coaching, the development. And obviously there's going to be that pathway in the next 2-3 years where they're training in the juniors and then are able to go on and play in the league. That's the massive potential that I think Chelsea have. And probably one of the biggest draws for me is because obviously I've been at that top level. You know, I'm not too fussed about kind of winning everything now. Obviously, it's brilliant that you want to win and things like that. But I think having some pathway and being able to help the younger ones to come through. And even in the last couple of sessions, we've had completely new players that haven't played amputee football before or have only been to the junior camps. And so for them to kind of be able to train, develop and play alongside sort of the more experienced people like we have at Chelsea it's massive for them really in terms of being able to develop into an England player. So I think in terms of kind of the long-term vision for obviously the club and even the England team, you know, that we're going to have players that were developed at Chelsea, at Cobham, and will eventually sort of win trophies for England, which I think is the most exciting part in it for me, to be honest, you know.
And just finally, what would be for you your own personal goal? What is your personal ambition within maybe the next 12 months or the next 2 years?
I'd say, personally, as I say, kind of win some sort of silver with Chelsea would be brilliant, sort of on a domestic level. And obviously with England, you know, we've had some tough tournaments really. You know, we're a young team, and we've gone out on penalties plenty of times before, so it's typical England. But no, with a young team, a lot of them have come through the pathway, like I've said. And so I think just continuing to improve with England. We've got the Nations League this summer, so we'll be playing against Poland, Spain, and Turkey, who are the top four in European amputee football. So that'll be a really good test, really good challenge. So to try and, you know, represent ourselves well there. And I think just, obviously moving on into the 2024 Euros, I think we'll have a really good chance of going and trying to get a medal or even win it. I think will be massive because a lot of the players will have developed and we're growing as a team. So I think, just to continue to improve for England as well would be massive.
Well, brilliant. And, you know, may I say good luck for the rest of the season, Kieran. I hope things go well, and I'd like to hopefully get to 1 or 2 games before the season concludes. And, you know, again, thank you very much for coming onto the show today.
Massive thanks, Keith. It's brilliant exposure for the sport to be able to showcase it like this. So massive thanks for having me on.
No problem. My pleasure.